It was early morning on December 1, 1948, when a man walking along Somerton Beach near Adelaide, Australia, noticed something strange lying at the base of the seawall. From a distance, it looked like a man sleeping, dressed sharply in a brown suit, polished shoes, and a neatly pressed shirt. But as he got closer, he realized the man wasn't asleep. He was dead. The body lay perfectly positioned, head propped slightly against the wall, legs crossed neatly, almost as if he had arranged himself before dying. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, and no identification anywhere on him. It was as if he had simply stopped existing. The police arrived within the hour, puzzled by the scene. The man's appearance was almost immaculate, clean-shaven, well-dressed, with no labels on his clothing. Every single tag had been carefully cut off. His fingerprints didn't match any known records, and there were no personal belongings except for a pack of cigarettes, a comb, and a bus ticket that led nowhere. The mystery had begun. When the autopsy was performed, doctors were baffled. The man appeared to be in his early 40s, in excellent health, and yet his organs showed signs of poisoning, though no trace of any known toxin could be found. It was as if he had been killed by something undetectable. The coroner concluded the death was likely not natural, but beyond that, they had no idea what had happened. The only solid clue came weeks later when investigators examined the man's clothes again and discovered a tiny, rolled-up scrap of paper hidden deep inside a secret pocket in his trousers. On it were two words, printed neatly in Persian, Tamám Shud, meaning "it is finished." That small piece of paper would become one of the most famous clues in forensic history. Detectives soon realized it had been torn from a rare book of Persian poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. But finding which copy it came from seemed impossible, until a man walked into the police station a few days later, carrying the very book. He claimed it had mysteriously appeared in the back seat of his car, parked near Somerton Beach on the night of the man's death. When police examined the book, they found the missing page had been torn from it, and faint indentations on the back revealed a series of coded letters, written in a strange pattern that no one could decipher. The public went wild. Newspapers dubbed him the Somerton Man, and the mystery became an international sensation. Who was he? A spy? A fugitive? A lover scorned? The code seemed to point to something greater, perhaps a hidden message or coordinates. Cryptographers from around the world tried to solve it, but none could agree on its meaning. Some said it was a cipher used by intelligence agencies during the Cold War, while others believed it was a poetic farewell, a coded suicide note. But if it was suicide, why the careful disguise? Why the secrecy? As investigators searched deeper, more strange details emerged. A suitcase believed to belong to the Somerton Man was found at the Adelaide railway station, left unclaimed the same day his body was discovered. Inside were neatly folded clothes with all labels removed, a stenciling brush, and thread that matched the stitching on his suit. The suitcase offered clues but no answers, everything in it seemed deliberately ordinary, as if designed to hide more than it revealed. The most haunting detail of all came from witnesses. A young couple who had seen the man the night before said they noticed him lying in the same position, arm raised slightly as if in a final wave. They thought he was drunk and left him alone. Hours later, he was dead. In the days following the discovery, the case began to twist in ways no one expected. Detectives started tracing every possible lead, but each one ended in confusion. When they examined the label from the suitcase at the train station, they found it had been partially torn but still readable. It bore the name T. Keen. Yet when police searched for any record of a man by that name matching the victim's description, nothing turned up. And more strangely, none of the man's clothes bore the name Keen at all. It was as if someone had deliberately placed that tag to mislead investigators. Forensic experts concluded that the suitcase had indeed belonged to the Somerton Man, but the absence of identifying marks made it nearly impossible to connect him to any known life. It was as though he had existed outside the system. No records, no relatives, no fingerprints in any database. Weeks later, the focus of the investigation shifted after a local nurse named Jessica Thompson, who lived near Somerton Beach, came forward. When detectives showed her a plaster bust of the man's face, she reportedly went pale and nearly fainted. She refused to explain how she knew him but said she couldn't help. Her reaction, though brief, set off waves of speculation. According to one detective, her body language was enough to convince them she recognized the man immediately but didn't want to be involved. Later, investigators learned that Jessica owned a copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the same edition from which the Tamám Shud note was torn. The coincidence was too striking to ignore. When police questioned her further, Jessica claimed she had once given that same book to a man named Alfred Boxall, who she met during World War II. The detectives tracked down Boxall, who was still alive, and very much not the Somerton Man. In fact, Boxall still had his copy of the book, intact with the Tamám Shud page still in it. This revelation plunged the case deeper into confusion. If Boxall wasn't the man, then who was the stranger who carried the torn page? Theories spread like wildfire. Some claimed the Somerton Man was a Soviet or British spy involved in secret post-war operations. Others thought he was a jilted lover of Jessica's who had taken his own life nearby, leaving behind the cryptic note as a poetic farewell. The presence of the code inside the book, a sequence of seemingly random letters, fueled the espionage theory. Experts from the Australian military and international cryptanalysis teams tried for months to break it but failed to find any coherent pattern. It was said the code was written by someone trained to conceal messages in plain sight. Years passed, and the mystery refused to die. The Somerton Man's body was embalmed and later buried, but his identity remained unknown. People continued to visit his grave, leaving flowers and notes, each speculating who he might have been. In the decades that followed, technology advanced, and DNA testing offered new hope. When researchers revisited the case in the 2000s, they exhumed the body and extracted genetic material that finally provided a faint trail. Through distant DNA matches, scientists linked the man to a family in Australia, and eventually, in 2022, forensic experts announced they had identified him as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne. But even with a name, the questions didn't stop. If he was just an engineer, why had he erased his identity? Why was he found with a cryptic note and a code no one could solve? And how did he end up dead by a poison that left no trace? Some investigators believe Webb was heartbroken after separating from his wife, whose name appeared in connection with Jessica Thomson's address book. Others think his death was an elaborate suicide inspired by the poetry of Omar Khayyam, symbolized by the phrase "it is finished." Yet skeptics argue that the entire story is too neat, that something darker lurks beneath the surface, a hidden narrative of intelligence operations and secret lives lost in the fog of post-war espionage. Even now, more than 70 years later, the Somerton Man remains one of the most mysterious figures in forensic history. His story endures because it asks questions that have no final answers, about identity, love, loss, and the lengths people go to conceal the truth. The years have not erased the mystery, they've only deepened it. The name Carl Webb may give the Somerton Man a place in the archives, but it does not explain the haunting details that still defy logic. Why did he travel hundreds of miles without anyone noticing his disappearance? How did a book of Persian poetry, a symbol of life's fleeting beauty, become the key to his final message? And what of the code, those 5 lines of random letters etched faintly into the back of the book? Even today, cryptanalysts admit it follows no known cipher pattern. It may have been a personal shorthand, a lover's code, or something that only he could ever understand. Forensic experts who revisited his remains say Webb's cause of death can now only be guessed. The poison theory remains strongest, but no one knows what substance could have vanished so completely from his system. There are no witnesses, no records, and no clear motive. It is as if the Somerton Man's life ended exactly as he intended, in silence, wrapped in riddles. Jessica Thomson died decades later, never revealing what she knew. Her son, who was linked through DNA to the Somerton Man, grew up unaware of the secret his mother carried. Only after her death did researchers uncover the genetic connection that tied their families together, suggesting a link far more personal than anyone had guessed. Perhaps the Somerton Man wasn't a spy or a stranger, but someone whose life crossed paths with hers in ways too painful to remember. When you stand at his grave today in Adelaide's West Terrace Cemetery, the headstone bears only 2 words, Somerton Man. No dates, no epitaph. Just the identity he left behind when he became one of the most famous unknown men in the world. Tourists still visit, historians still debate, and the whispers of the past still echo across the sand where his story began. Maybe the mystery was never meant to be solved. Maybe that's the point of it, that some truths are meant to stay buried, like poetry written in invisible ink. The Somerton Man's final message, Tamám Shud, still lingers in the minds of those who study him. It is finished, but the questions never end.